Hey everyone, good afternoon on the East Coast, good morning on the West Coast, and good evening in Europe. My name is Andrew Bourget, Head of Customer Operations for ShipAngel, and I'm excited to join you all today to walk you through the ShipAngel platform. I think you're going to hopefully get a really good understanding of what the ShipAngel platform is capable of, and ultimately understand a little bit what kind of ROI potentially you could see in utilizing ShipAngel's features to help your business day to day manage international ocean, air, and trucking rates. At the end of the day, what's really important is that, in today's day of supply chain, is that you are utilizing all of the most up-to-date tools that give you the most competitive advantage over your competition. And we believe that the ShipAngel application can allow you to do that. And we want to kind of show you how it works. A little bit of housekeeping. If you guys have questions through this demo, please drop a question in the comment section, in the question section of this presentation. If you guys are interested in finding out more information about ShipAngel, we would love to dive in a deeper conversation with you afterwards or in the future. We believe very much in the show, don't tell philosophy. And so ultimately, if you find the ShipAngel application useful, we'd love to sign an NDA, look at your rates, upload your rates, and present you your business inside the ShipAngel application to give you a real taste on what the ShipAngel application could look like with your rates and data inside of it. I'm going to get going here. Please ask questions if you guys have questions throughout the way. I really want this to be an engaging session, hopefully, if you're interested in talking. ShipAngel as a whole, what we are is a AI-powered rate management solution. Our flagship product is something that we call rate management. And what we allow you to do is manage all of your international shipping directly inside a singular platform that gets you out of managing spreadsheets and also gets you into utilizing third-party data amongst your shipping data. And the key to all of this is the biggest problem in international rate management, and that is inputting the rates into the platform. And so what ShipAngel has been able to do is build what is a artificial intelligence machine learning system that we have built internally from scratch on our own. And what it ensures that when you send data to ShipAngel, it stays on a secure server that's managed by ShipAngel, and it's not sent to any third party. And so what that means is all of your rate quotes, your Excel sheets, your contracts, your PDF attachments with quotes and contracts, your email quotes and contracts, any of the third-party portals that you utilize to get information about rates from your carriers or your vendors, all of that information is now consolidated and managed by ShipAngel to present to you inside the platform. So what that means is you think and view your rates inside the ShipAngel platform in the ShipAngel format, and you no longer have to look at a Excel spreadsheet with your calculator trying to understand what is the total cost of this rate that I'm being quoted. We will take all of that, we will process it through our AI process pipeline, and we'll present it to you inside the platform. And we're going to do this in what I call in near real time, meaning we upload thousands of rates and contracts every single month for our customers. And what we are able to do so is do it very quickly in a turnaround time that is between 15 and 17 hours on average. In addition, the median value, where 50% of the data sits above and below, is actually a single digit value. And so we can process these rates very quickly for you. We can present them into the platform very quickly for you to give you visibility to your rates, but also very importantly, give your entire organization visibility to those rates. No longer does everyone have to come to you and ask what your rates are. They don't have to wonder, has the rate been updated? They simply log in and they have full access to the information that you want them to see. Once inside the ShipAngel platform, what's super useful here is we give you the ability to see your rates and manage them 24/7, 365, regardless of where you are. You're always going to have access from your rates. This here is a mirror image of my cell phone that's right in front of me. And this gives you that ability that very quickly, while you're on the go, you're still going to be able to search your rates, understand what your rates are, regardless of where you are. Open up your phone, go to your Chrome browser, your Apple Safari, whatever internet browser that you're using, quickly search your rates and understand with Hapag-Lloyd from Shanghai to New York City, my all-in cost per 40 high cube is just under $3,000. This is going to give you and your team agency to know what the rates are and empower you to make better decisions at any time in any place. Once inside the ShipAngel platform, the most important feature is our search functionality. And so after we process all of the rates, after you've negotiated the rates and you've gotten them inside the system, the beneficiary of that is now we can search that system, that database of rates very easily and look at everything in a very much an apples to apples format. And so in here, I can search for a rate for Shanghai. I can search for a rate from Antwerp. I can search them together, give me all my results from Shanghai and Antwerp to New York City or whatever destination that you guys are looking for rates from. You can also search by country. And so instead of US NYC or New York City, maybe I want to search for everything that comes into the United States. And so I might select United States, and now I'm going to see all of my rates from Shanghai to Antwerp to New York City and anything that comes to the United States. There's a lot of ways to search. There's additionally lots of ways to search around door locations, port locations, or anything in between. We give you the flexibility to really search for any rate on your supply chain that you need. I'm going to filter this search down to simply Shanghai to New York City, and I'm going to click search. Once the rate cards populate in the results, I can now scroll through and start to understand what are my rates on these lanes. And so I know very quickly my lowest rate, because ShipAngel is going to present you your rates in your lowest cost first. I'm always going to know this is my best rate. My rate per 40 foot is just under $2,100 per 40 foot. As I scroll down, you'll see this Hapag-Lloyd. You might not see it because my face. This Hapag-Lloyd rate is just short of $2,300. As I scroll down, the rates are going to be sorted in ascending order so that you know my lowest cost is always the first result that I see when I search. Additionally, we give you the ability to also filter those results. Very quickly, I can say, look, I don't need my CMA and my Hapag. I just want to know what MSC is on this lane. And so I can very quickly filter down to the specific rate card that I want to have access to. Additionally, there's filters around other things like price range. I'm working on a shipment. I need to keep my price below a certain price point. Otherwise, I can't use that. I can't ship this cargo, or I can't sell this cargo that I'm trying to sell. And this can also help you narrow down those search results so that you ultimately make the best decision on any shipment or opportunity that you're working on. As I scroll through, there's a lot of really cool filters here. We have the idea of origin proximity. And so I looked for a rate out of Shanghai and I got 5 results, but maybe I'm not sure if I want to use Shanghai. Maybe I want to use a different origin, but I'm not sure. I can put this origin proximity up to 800 kilometers, or I can look at it in miles. I can click OK, and what you'll see is my 5 results now becomes 9 results. And now I have additional ports that I could potentially evaluate amongst Shanghai. Where this becomes really valuable is if you're having supply constraints with a warehouse or a trucker, or the port is closed from a typhoon or a work stoppage, you can start to find some alternative options that might live just outside of Shanghai that could give you opportunities to potentially ship on. There are a lot of really, really cool filters that we've built in here. Things like transit time, proximity. We also give you the ability to filter out transshipment locations or number of transshipments. If I don't want to go through a Busan and I have to go direct, we can make sure that we're looking at simply the direct options or things that don't transship in places that I can't. Similarly to what I just mentioned, if I need to avoid Busan, I have the ability to do that. Inside the rate cards, you're going to get a plethora of information about your rates. I know my all-in values, what they are, if I need to make a very quick decision on quoting something. I also know what service potentially that I'm supposed to ship on or my rates are valid on. This is data that we can also, work around. Maybe you have, instead of allocations on certain lanes, maybe it's, expedited service. Maybe you're using some of those fast boat services and you want to differentiate those in between your regular rates. Additionally, transit time is the first place where we start to bring in third-party data to help you validate your decision process. And so here I'm seeing a 28-day transit, which is the stock information presented by you or by your carriers to you. This number could be lead time. This could be transit time. And then what we do is we present the market transit time next to it to validate your transit. Am I faster or am I slower in comparison to the market? The way we do this is through schedule data. And so we bring in schedule data from a third party to ensure that a carrier, a service, a vessel, and an ETD ETA, ultimately to allow you to validate decisions, what I want to ship on, who I want to ship with. But most importantly, we're going to give you that transit time to compare against your transit time. Am I faster or am I slower? Additionally, inside the Ship Angel application in our search function, you're also going to get access to all of your surcharge data. I know that 20-foot base rate, my 40-foot base rates, what are, and I know the surcharges that are associated with these values. I can very quickly understand what's my bunker cost. Maybe I need to validate an invoice, and I very quickly can see what my bunker cost was at this time based on the rates that I have today. What's valuable about the platform is we can also search back in time. And so at the top of the screen here, after I've already kicked off a search, I get the ability to now look at rates in the past or in the future. And so I could go back to, April 17th, click search, and now on April 17th, my lowest rate was actually MSC. Great. That's information that's useful, but maybe I wanted to validate the surcharges with CMA. Well, what I can do is now filter for CMA, and I can look at these surcharges to understand what are the values that were applicable at that time. And that time, in this case, is in April 17th of this year. And so you can go back in time, but you can also go forward in time. And so I'm going to clear the filter and then also search for a rate into October to say, okay, I need to do a shipment next month. What rates do I have available next month? When I do the search, I now get 4 results. And I still see CMA is the lowest option. And based on the rate's validity, I could use this rate into next month to understand what are my costs should I need to plan a shipment that moves next month. Additionally, inside the platform, we also give you access to your demurrage and detention values. And so if I know specifically I'm going to ship cargo with Hapag-Lloyd, and I know at destination I need to know what my free time is, we can program that into the platform so that you have visibility to it. Ultimately, if you have that data and it's accessible in your contracts based on your negotiations, or it's something that is available publicly, we can present that D&D information so that you're making the best decision for every shipment that you're utilizing. Additionally, here inside the front of the rate card, or what we call the general info tab, you also get access to the other place that we start to bring in third-party data. And here's where we help to ensure that you understand what your rates mean. And so what I can show you here based on this graph is this Hapag-Lloyd rate as of September 24th is 10% below the market average. We can bring in that third-party data from that third-party benchmarking service that you use today and you trust to now allow you to validate your decision process to be able to say, my rate is either competitive or it's not competitive. Where this becomes really valuable is through the negotiation process, where you're starting to negotiate maybe a PSS value, you're starting to negotiate new spot rates. We're going to give you ammunition to understand when you can push back with your providers and when maybe you should say, hey, my rate's pretty good. I don't want to mess anything up and try to push for a lower rate. You get that visibility utilizing the Ship Angel platform to ensure you always know what your rates mean. In addition, we don't just give you the ability to manage your long-term rates. This rate for Hapag-Lloyd happens to be a rate that is long-term. And so when I opened up this chart, we saw that it was a long-term rate. I'm going to scroll down and I'm searching in the future. Let me go back to current rates and click search. When I scroll down and I look at this DSV rate, this is a short validity rate. This is a 1 month rate. Potentially it's a bi-monthly rate. When I open up this rate card, specifically, it's going to show me the short-term market rate on this lane. And so regardless of whether you're using NVOs or you're utilizing direct ocean carriers, you're always going to have visibility to what is my rate? How does it compare to the market? Is it competitive or not? Based on this rate, it is competitive. But if I go back in time a little bit into August, we can see that this rate was actually higher than where that market rate is. And so you're going to be armed with the ability to truly understand what does your rate mean, not just how does it compare against my providers. You're also going to be able to compare it against transit time data and benchmark data from third-party sources. This is inside of our ocean rates section. ShipAngel is a multi-modality system in that we can present ocean rates as well as we can present you your air freight rates. And so inside the air freight section, I can also search for all of my air freight rates. Here, I'm going to do a search for Bangkok to Los Angeles. And what you'll see here is we utilize the airport codes. And in addition, if you didn't necessarily want to search a rate from an airport to an airport, we also give you the ability to search for a rate from a particular origin. And so I'm going to search for a rate from Mansfield, Massachusetts, where I live personally. And so whether it's a door rate or a port-to-port rate, you're always going to get the ability to search and then see the rate card associated with that search. And so this is a Mansfield, Massachusetts to a Dublin, Ireland lane, a door-to-door lane, if you will. And from here, you can now very quickly understand what are my total costs at the various weight breaks. Based on air freight, everything is run on really a weight break basis. What are my total all-in costs, accounting for the origin charges, accounting for the destination charges? I know that if I'm going to ship something that's greater than 500 kilos, I'm looking at a cost that's going to be $26.80 per kilo. Additionally, inside these rate cards, you now also get access to the surcharge information. And so I can validate this lane and say, okay, based on my air freight rate, based on my fuel cost, based on my security costs, what is my total air freight rate? Well, in this scenario, it's about $25 per kilo based on the different weight breaks. In addition, I have now pickup costs. I'm looking at a 10 cents per kg cost on some of these pickup costs. I have maybe a terminal handling, an x-ray. There's a whole bunch of costs potentially that are included here to now understand my origin costs represent about 50 cents per kg all in. Ultimately, what you're going to get access to is at these different weight breaks, what are my total costs? In addition, we also bring in the idea is I don't just need to maybe manage the procurement of these rates. I also want to potentially execute a shipment. I need to actually move something on this lane. What is it going to cost me? What we give you the ability here up at the top of the search bar is we give you the ability to put in that chargeable weight. If I know I'm going to ship 501 chargeable weight kilos on this shipment, what we can do is put the 501 up here in the kilogram section. And now what you're seeing is the system's going to look at the weight break that's applicable at that specific value. What is the cost that is going to be calculated if I do a shipment down to the exact penny? And so I know at 501 kilos, my total cost is going to be $13,426.30. I know if I'm operationally going to execute a move, this is my total cost that I should expect to the penny. And what's really valuable here is you can still validate this cost amongst your different providers. And so this is a Mansfield to Dublin lane. When I scroll down, this is a Mansfield to London lane. I now know if I were to ship to London specifically, my cost is just under $10,000. If I'm comparing lanes that are the same across different providers, I can now validate not just on a cost per weight break and a cost per kilo. I can also validate what's my total all-in cost based on what I need to ship when I need to ship it. Very, very valuable information that we're able to give you access to. Additionally, like inside the ocean freight section, we also give you the ability to benchmark your rates to understand, are my rates competitive or not in comparison to the market? When I kick off this search for Bangkok to Los Angeles, we see a SIVA rate card here. What we see on the right is a very similar chart that you guys saw inside the ocean section. From here, I can flip over to the greater than 500 kilo section. And now very quickly, I am validating my cost for air freight, apples to apples. How does that compare to the third-party benchmark data that we're presenting for you? In this scenario, I can say, hey, my rate's high. I got some work to do. This is what's truly impactful with the ShipAngel system is we bring that third-party data in so that you understand, hey, my rate is competitive or it's not competitive. Maybe you're a shipper who doesn't ship greater than 500 kilos. Maybe you haven't negotiated your rates to be competitive at that weight break. What it can allow you to do is shine some light into the corners where you potentially need to go procure better rates, or in some cases, you need to go procure rates, period. Maybe you don't have a rate on this lane. When I search for Bangkok to Los Angeles, I get no results. I now know if I need to ship on this lane, I need to go out and find a rate on this lane. Additionally, we also give you access to your trucking rates. And this is where both trucking on a full container basis, as well as your drayage can live inside the trucking section. And so I might want to pop in and do a search for rates from Boston and to understand if I'm going to ship a full container load, what are the costs that I should expect on this lane? Boston to New York City, we have this down as $1,000, which might be a pretty competitive rate versus what the market is in actuality. But here you're going to be able to understand if I were to move on this lane, what is my all-in cost? What are the different providers that I have rates for? In addition, I can now also dig into the surcharge amounts. What's my fuel cost? What are the miscellaneous charges that they're also presenting to me to understand of the total puzzle, what are the pieces that are a part of that puzzle? In addition, which is really useful here for our trucking section, is that trucking rates, specifically if you're working with brokers trying to understand your FTL rates, things move very quickly. You're going to probably send an email out to 5 or 6 different providers, and you're probably going to get rates back from them in probably minutes to hours. And from there, you're probably going to execute your decision process on a trucking lane very quickly. And so the idea here is I could come into the ShipAngel platform and I could look for a rate from Boston to Atlanta, and I could see I don't have rates available. Uh-oh, this is a problem. What you could then do is jump over to your email. You could put a quote for a couple different lanes and say, hey, I need some rates on these lanes. You're the rates. I'm actually going to put in Boston to Atlanta here. And you guys are going to see in real time the power of our AI here. So Boston, Massachusetts to Atlanta with DSV, maybe they quoted me for $4,000 all in. I'm going to click send. And then what you guys are going to have the ability to do is quickly get access to those rates inside the ShipAngel platform. And so what that's going to do, that email is going to go to our rates plus banana-cola.ai email address. And that's where the processing of our artificial intelligence starts. And so you guys could identify that you don't have a rate. You could go to your email. You could ask your providers to send you some rates. Once you get those rates, you can forward them to ShipAngel. And we've been able to set up a process with our trucking rates in a very loose format to be able to get the artificial intelligence that we've built to process these rates very quickly. And so earlier when I was talking about the timeline for our ocean uploads, all of that was taking into account ocean shipping. We have spent about 2.5, 3 years building out our AI system for international ocean shipping. And where we're now starting to get into is those different modalities, and trucking is one of them. Trucking moves quick though. And so very quickly, I've been able to upload a rate, and very quickly, we're going to be able to process that rate. And so inside this system here, in a mere minutes, I'm going to get the ability to now search that Boston to Atlanta lane. So I'm going to type in Boston. I'm going to type in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm going to click search. It's still processing here. Usually it takes a few minutes. And so at some point here in the near future, we're going to start to see that rate be processed and presented here inside the platform. While that's processing, I'm going to show you guys a couple other features inside the platform that are super useful, where you guys could potentially draw some value. One of those is a section that we call our ocean rates section. Inside here is where you can start to save what I like to call your greatest hits. And so all the lanes that matter to you, most importantly, can be saved directly here inside the platform. What you're going to get is visibility from more of a zoomed out view. What are my most cost effective options, and what are my fastest options? In addition, if I wanted to get more information on this rate, I could actually click on this rate, start dig through the security of the surcharges, start to look at schedules and understand more details about this rate. But on a base level, I now know my cheapest option comparison to the market is this, and then in comparison to my fastest option is this. And so you can make very quick decisions based on your data to understand what's going on. In addition, we also give you the ability to download this data as an Excel document. And so I can click export. I can download this data into an Excel document, which I can then see a very similar format here. And then very quickly, what you could potentially do is say, okay, maybe I load 100 of my most important lanes here in the platform. And then what I can do is give you the ability to export this, simply create an equation, average rate minus my rate. What's the difference? And then over maybe your top 10 lanes or top 100 lanes, depending how many you put in there, I know on average now my best rate in comparison to the market rate is either plus or minus on average a certain value. And so in this scenario, based on the data, I would be able to pull this data down and say my rates are better than the market on average $200-$300. That can be now allow you to very quickly get almost like a scorecard to say my rates in comparison to the market are better or worse across all my lanes. Maybe I have some work to do, or maybe I don't. Maybe it's more of a validation to say you are doing the right things when it comes to procurement. At the end of the day, we give you the power to manage your rates and be able to draw conclusions on them based on the data that's being presented externally. I'm going to come back in, and as you can see here, since I last showed this, we now see from Boston to Atlanta, we're starting to see this data flow in. And what's really useful here is we can now get a picture of this rate very quickly. And so imagine your team is very much actively quoting rates, looking for trucking rates. We can process these trucking rates very quickly so that you send out an email, you get a response, you forward all those rates to the ShipAngel application, and in mere minutes, you're able to process the rates, review which rates you should or shouldn't use so that you're making the best decision on any given lane. As you guys saw, this $4,000 rate was processed in minutes. This is going to be a game changer for anyone who's shipping specifically FTL rates and they're getting a high volume of brokerage emails sending out to the various brokers. We can process those rates. We can show them into the platform, and we can make sure you're making data-driven decisions on who are the lowest, what was I quoted, or if you want to go back and look historically, what were rates that I was quoted in the past. It's a lot easier to do it inside of a platform, inside of a system, not necessarily being able to do it inside of a Excel document that you have to manually update, or inside of an email where you have to now search and hopefully it finds the right email. It can be an arduous process sometimes. Additionally, I got 2 more minutes. What I want to also show is ShipAngel is also starting to build out our artificial intelligence system beyond just processing rates. We also have the idea of a co-pilot here where you can come in and start to ask questions to the same AI that we have built internally to process your rates. You can now start to ask questions of your rates. What are my rates last quarter? How do they compare quarter over quarter? Or it can be as simple as, what is my lowest rate for a 40 high cube Shanghai to New York City? As we saw earlier when I did that search, that was a CMA rate of, I believe, just around $2,000. I think it was $2,082 to be exact. And so now what this allows you guys to do is very quickly, actually, we have an even better rate because we have a spot rate that's available here as well. And so what you guys are going to be able to do is quickly ask questions about your rate data on a simplistic level or a more complex level. Maybe we want to understand what's my average rate over a certain lane based on a certain number of carriers. You can start to utilize that to help you answer questions without having to dig into the data, do a search, and pull out your TI-83 and start entering numbers into a calculator. I've shown you guys a lot of things here inside the ShipAngel application. Ultimately, we're going to give you all access to a lot of return on investment here. You're going to get more time. You're not going to have to process rates. You're not going to have to force your vendors to templatize your rates. And you're going to get those rates done and updated in near real time, in mere hours, not days or weeks. Additionally, you're going to spend a lot of time making better decisions. You're going to make a better choice on who you use, and you're going to make better choices based on the validations that we can bring in from third-party data. My name is Andrew, head of customer operations for ShipAngel. I really look forward to talking to some of you more in the future. If you guys want to dig more into the application, dig in more to our capabilities, or just take your data and put it in the application, we'd love to do it. We'd love to show you how that works. Everyone, I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll talk real soon. Thank you, guys.